Hey, what's up, astrology fans? I'm Patrick Jaguar, and welcome to this video. So, in this one, we're going to talk about Jupiter. So, Jupiter is getting ready. Jupiter's getting ready. I'm stumbling a little bit there. Jupiter is getting ready to make some really big moves. One really big move. Actually a stop and then a move. Jupiter is going to station and then retrograde, but very importantly, it's going to station pretty much on top of America's natal moon. America's natal moon is at 7 degrees Aquarius. Jupiter is going to stop and station so it can go retrograde at 8 degrees. Before I get into it all, quick admin. If you like my videos, you like my content, please consider liking the videos, subscribing to the channel, sharing the videos, and just drop me a little comment. It can be a thumbs up, a smiley face, a thanks. It doesn't have to be any well-crafted, well-thought-out comment. Nothing crazy. It just helps the search algorithm, brings me up in the search results. Thanks either way. So anyway, let's get into Jupiter. So Jupiter is the bestower of blessings, of luck, of gifts. Jupiter is, the Sanskrit word for Jupiter is guru. So guru it's the name for Jupiter. It's where we get the word guru. So Jupiter is one of the teachers of the zodiac. And it's like the teacher of deep knowledge and wisdom. Guru is Sanskrit, literally for deep. So the name for Jupiter is deep because it teaches you deep wisdom, deep knowledge. So yeah, Jupiter bestows gifts, blessings, good fortune. Jupiter is a protector. Jupiter is actually, in the solar system, is second in size and in mass to the sun. So Jupiter actually sucks in asteroids and comets and things that could be a threat to the Earth. So it's a literal protector. And this is why in all pantheons, Eurasian pantheons, Jupiter is the thunder gods are avatars for Jupiter, and they're all protectors of humanity. So Thor, for example, in the pantheon that I like to recognize and honor, it's Jupiter is Thor. So, and Thor is a protector of humanity. Thor protects humans from the Jotuns. So the Jotuns and the Etins. So basically the giants and the trolls. So not literally, large human-looking beings, but a better word is the devourers. So forces of nature that just want to kind of devour and disrupt the human world. So we're talking about like the rising oceans, winter cold, summer heat, snowstorms, rainstorms, just forces of nature that we as humans can perceive as destructive because they get in the way of our goals and our objectives in the human world. So Thor or Jupiter is that protector, as are all thunder gods. So Jupiter, this thunder god, Thor if you will, and especially Jupiter is really in his Thor mode when it's going retrograde, because that brings out the anger in Jupiter, kind of the divine indignation. And because of Jupiter going direct, going forward is kind of like kind of a nice cuddly spiritual teacher a lot of the time. When it goes retrograde, it's throwing hammers at enemies' heads like Thor. So, in my opinion, the enemies of America are going to start having hammers thrown at their heads. So, Thor is going to go to work here. To recap, Jupiter is the protector of humanity, bestower of wealth, giver of gifts, giver of blessings. And Jupiter also promotes the truth. because Jupiter is the ruler of Pisces and, more importantly, Sagittarius. Sagittarius, among many things, deals with higher knowledge, higher education, philosophy, spirituality, and truth. And like I learned, I did a political science major at the Naval Academy, and like a bunch of my teachers were former CIA. I was an intelligence officer, and what I learned through all this education and training is the truth doesn't exist. The truth is, it's kind of an illusion for the little people that the news just talks about. And the news does this, the media does this to get people off the backs of big business and government. The world is a sea of perceptions, and people with the most resources and most power can create perceptions that are favorable to them, and they can promote those because they have forums like religion, education, government, and mass media to promote perceptions and narratives that support their interests and help them get more power. But truth does exist in a relative sense. You can put kind of two concepts next to each other, and one can be truer than the other, but it does depend on the culture you're in, and all that kind of stuff. All cultures, all worldviews are based on assumptions. But anyway, we're getting a little abstract with this. So Jupiter has a relationship with truth and with higher knowledge, higher information, kind of accurate information of a high quality. And so in America's chart, America is Sagittarius ascendant. And so in America's chart, the sign of Aquarius is the third house. So Aquarius is the sign of humanity and of we the people. The third house is the sign of, is the house, third house is the house of communication and all forms of media. So for a country to have Aquarius, the sign of we the people, humanity, in the house of communication and media, it basically means that in ideal circumstances, when things are working right, media should be for the benefit of the people. It doesn't always work out that way, but that's the ideal that the country was founded upon. I think, characters like Benjamin Franklin chose for the Declaration of Independence, chose for that document to be signed in the evening on July 4th, 1776, because they had the Sagittarius ascendant, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And more importantly, it was the Aquarius moon that was happening on that day. And so America's natal moon, the moon in America's birth chart, is it's in the third house in Aquarius at 7 degrees. So in the moon, again, the moon is the mind. So the mind is the whole consciousness. The intellect is a very small island in consciousness. So the mind is also the emotions, the personality, memories, just our whole intangible consciousness. So with this Jupiter stationing to go retrograde, again, Jupiter is going to stop and stand still at 8 degrees of Aquarius in America's third house. That's 1 degree away from America's natal moon. So the natal moon for America, the moon in the United States of America's birth chart, is at 7 degrees. So 1 degree difference between two planets is, they're conjunct. They're almost exactly conjunct. So, and this is really powerful. So basically on top of America's natal moon, Jupiter's going to stop and then it's going to retrograde. Now the thing about planets retrograding, it's a time to go back and review and reassess. It's not time to take on new information. So in the case of Jupiter, it's not time to take on new information, not time to learn new information. And since it's in the house of media and the sign of the people, it's not time to basically dump new truths and, well, contrived truths. It's not time to dump new information on the people. It's actually time to go back and reassess the truth and reassess information that's already out there and drop a truth bomb on the people. And so Jupiter being the bestower of gifts and fortune and good luck, I think Jupiter's going to do exactly this thing, because again, it's stationing to go retrograde right on top of America's natal moon, in the house of media, in the sign of we the people. So it also means that in 2021, Jupiter will have crossed over America's natal moon 3 times. So it did it within the last few weeks. It went past that 7th degree mark. In the next couple weeks, it's going. After it retrogrades, and it's going to. The date for Jupiter to station and go retrograde is on Midsummer's Day. It's the summer solstice, June 21st. So the high point of the sun. Midsummer's Day, the summer solstice, probably the most auspicious day of the year. It's the day of the year where we have the most light. So if there's a day for like truth and upstandingness, forthrightness, forthcomingness, it's the summer solstice, because the sun is the light of the world. That's why they call Jesus the light of the world, because Jesus is a sun god, a benevolent sun god. So the sun is the light of the world, and it reaches its height at Midsummer's Day on the solstice. A lot of people call June 21st the first day of summer. It's actually midsummer, because the sun's not going any higher. It's all downhill from there. So this is the most auspicious, the most light. It's the day where the sun god is strongest, and it's lighting the northern hemisphere, at its most powerful. I want to look up the holiday here. So, in the ancient European world, on the 8-spoked wheel of the year, you had 8 holidays that corresponded to these 8 points, and these 8 points of the wheel were all about, sun's height, sun's depth, the equinoxes, and then the in-between points that actually start the seasons. So summer begins at about May 7th, and it's at its midpoint on June 21st, and the end is, what is it now? It's like in the second week of August. It's the last day of summer. I can't find a Gaelic name for it. Not really that important. But, so this June 21st is like the day of the sun god, basically fighting for humanity and fighting for everything that's just and right and upright and, forthcoming and upstanding. So, really auspicious day for Jupiter to station and go retrograde on top of, again, the natal moon of America, in order to tell the truth. So I think Jupiter is going to be telling the truth. And I think Jupiter is going to bring out, it's going to point out some pretty huge media corruption. I think stories are going to come out into the media that they can no longer contain. I think one of the big stories here is going to be the truth of the Wuhan flu, the China virus. Like I've been talking about, in the Senate, Dr. Fauci's been getting pummeled against the ropes in a corner of the ring. He used to laugh when Donald Trump talked about, hey, we should have our intelligence agencies investigate to see if this virus leaked out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. He laughed at it, said it was an uneducated conspiracy theory. But senators have gotten him to admit that it should be investigated, and he's said, yeah, that's a sound idea. It could have escaped from the lab, and even President Biden tasked the intelligence services with investigating whether or not this actually happened. So it's being investigated. I think this is going to come out. Mass media, they're going to look like a bunch of fools when they finally have to admit this. But they're going to do it because they don't want to lose any more market share. You know, the big networks, CNN, Fox, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, they've all been in the toilet for years because they've been making excuses for, you know, really corrupt people in business and politics. And they've been covering things up. So in an attempt to not, you know, go belly up and lose their market share, they're going to have to start dropping truth bombs. And they're going to do just that. So, and it's going to basically, it's going to be in such a way that people just can't deny it. You know, a lot, I've been calling in my monthlies, you know, for like big information's going to come out, and people say, well, where was the big dissemination of information? And I'm like, well, it happened. It's just only the alternative media covered it. You know, I'm talking stuff backed up by documentary evidence. But things in the world are such these days that if the mainstream media outlets don't say something's real, people don't think it's real. So a lot of truth bombs have been coming, but the corporate funded media, that's 90% of all media in the world is owned and controlled by 6 companies. It's pretty easy for the chairman of the boards of directors to get together, say once a quarter, and figure out how the news is going to be told for their benefit and the benefit of their corporate sponsors. So they've been holding a lot of things back, and media is going to it's going to come out that they've been holding a lot of information back about, you know, why we go to war. A lot of corrupt things in the world, like human trafficking, child trafficking, drug trafficking, who invests in it and who runs it. You know, really people who look really upstanding. And it's not, you know, it's not just aggressive asshole Republican types, but it's very, very nice and smiley progressive types too. They're all going to go down together eventually. And there's all kinds of things. Media has helped to suppress a lot of energy technology, medical technology that could really benefit humanity. There's even stuff like mind control, MK Ultra, that back in the 70s they were reporting when CIA was admitting to doing it in congressional and Senate hearings. But it hasn't really been talked about, and it gets laughed at as conspiracy theory. And another big thing too that's looming is this whole alien ET UFO thing. Within the last, 3-4 years, the Pentagon has been admitting that they've been following UFOs, and they're saying that they don't know where they're from. Recently, the Washington Post has been doing like some live videos about, you know, basically this whole UFO thing. I want to find this guy's name. He's, hang on a second. He's a former intelligence official. And he worked for, here's the guy. This guy's name is Luis Elizondo. He worked for one of these shadow intelligence agencies that people they didn't know it existed till these last few years when this UFO thing has been coming into the mainstream. So he was a former director of the Advanced Aerospace Identification Program. This was a shadow intelligence agency that most people really didn't know about. And most people these days, especially people with a college degree, if you tell them that there are entire intelligence agencies out there, that exist but people don't know about, and you can't look them up in a book and you can't Google search them. They laugh at you, tell you you're a fucking idiot and a conspiracy theorist and all this stuff. Well, this guy's doing these live videos with the Washington Post, and he's saying, yeah, this is a real thing. Now, the interesting thing is he's not an old stuffy white guy wearing a suit. He's like, he's got this like Spanish kind of Hispanic name, and he's got his goatee and his soul patch, and he's got his ball cap. So basically, the deep state has rolled out this guy who's like Latino, and then he's like hipster friendly because he's got his soul patch and his goatee, and he's got a nice, he's like sympathetic, kind of frustrated face that politicians put on when they want you to think they're concerned and they feel bad for you, and they've got your best interests at heart. So it's great theater. He's got his ball cap, and he's got his like V-neck T-shirt with, with the stylish blazer. So this guy's totally fucking made for TV. But yeah, so they've rolled this guy out there, and he's saying, well, we were wondering if these UFOs were secret experimental aircraft made by the aerospace companies, like Lockheed, Grumman, Boeing. But we found this not to be the case, and we don't think it's an adversarial country like Russia or China. So we think it could be off-world or from some kind of inner space between dimensions or from inside the Earth. He's saying this on this talk with the Washington Post. And again, the secret intelligence agency he worked for was Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So I think this whole media is going to try to spin this whole thing into an alien ET UFO threat, because intelligence agencies, especially like CIA, they're professional paranoid fantasists. So they sit around thinking about threats and threat assessment all day, and they think about worst case scenarios, and then they go and scare the shit out of government decision makers with these threats in these hypothetical paranoid fantasy scenarios, worst case scenarios. So that's the natural place they take everything. Everything that's not us is a threat. It's like how Christians, Muslims, every spirit in the cosmos that's not either Jesus, Yahweh, fucking Muhammad, or Allah is automatically satanic. Or if it's not an angel, it's automatically satanic. So it's this whole dualistic, Judeo-Christian, Abrahamic religion, just dualistic programming. If it's not us, because we're always good, so if it's not us, it's definitely evil. And a lot of the military leadership is this way too. It's like everything that's not us is automatically evil and it's a fucking threat. So they're going to try to do this, and I think they're going to try to use this UFO ET threat to distract us from the truth bombs dropping that yes, the Wuhan flu, the China virus, leaked out of the lab at the Wuhan Institute of Virology because they're doing gain-of-function research, and gain-of-function research is when you take a harmful pathogen and you make it even more harmful and deadly and crazier so you can study it. And it's going to come out, which there is evidence for that, and Dr. Fauci has admitted to this, that when, as head of NIH, he was approving money to be given to the Wuhan Institute to do research. But he says, but they couldn't have done gain-of-function research because it's against the rules, it's against the terms of getting the money. And the senators have said, well, could have they lied to you? Is it possible they lied? And he did the typical politician thing. Well, not to my knowledge or recollection. So somebody's fucked up big time. Dr. Fauci's halfway under the wheels of the bus. They're going to get caught doing some dumb shit. And I think that the virus had help leaking out of the lab because the big box stores and the big chain restaurants and chain stores and chain retailers wanted to destroy small business, and over 100,000 small businesses in America alone have had to shut their doors since the beginning of this whole Kung Flu pandemic, so-called pandemic that you have over a 99% chance of surviving if you're under the age of 80. The whole economy's been destroyed. Alcoholism and drug abuse and drug overdoses and child molestation and domestic abuse are through the roof. People have lost their livelihoods, and it's bringing all the inner ugliness out of a lot of people. So, yeah, all that for something that you've got 99% plus chance of surviving. So this shit's gonna come out. It's basically fucking inevitable at this point, but they're gonna try to use this whole ET alien threat, UFO threat. And I also think this because along with Jupiter being in Aquarius, the sign of the people, third house of media, you got Neptune in there. Neptune was discovered around the time when the camera was being invented and developed in its modern form. Neptune rules is a co-ruler of Pisces with Jupiter. And Pisces is all about escapes. It's about like the world beyond this one. It's about illusions. Neptune is illusion. Neptune is like intoxication, illusions, delusions, escapism, and virtual realities. And media is a virtual reality. So like, let's say you watch the inauguration on television live. You're not really watching the inauguration. You're watching the sound vibrations in the air and the light waves captured by camera and microphone that are being broadcast to you. But, there's always editing going on because, you don't see the full thing from start to finish. You see it when the people on the podium get queued up to start the ritual, to start the media show. And if you see non-live TV, that's been edited like crazy. So you're looking at things through a virtual reality. Even watching a live transmission, you're hundreds of miles away and watching something that's coming to you streaming over the internet or coming through a coaxial cable wire. So you are interacting with a virtual reality. You're not actually watching what's going on. So Neptune is all that media illusion. It's Hollywood movie magic. In the news, mass media is Hollywood movie magic. The news media is just Hollywood for people who are not as good looking and who have bigger degrees. And politics is Hollywood movie magic too. Washington D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people with law degrees and PhDs basically, and MBAs. So, yeah, I think with Jupiter stationing on top of America's birth moon, going retrograde in the sign of the people, in the house of media, Jupiter is going to give the gift of truth bombs to the people. And it's going to expose media corruption, government corruption, financial corruption, medical and science corruption. But you've got Neptune there. So Neptune is going to help to try to, through this virtual reality of media, it's going to help try to fabricate the distraction. I don't think that this UFO threat distraction is going to be successful. Because on June the 25th, a mere 4 days later, Neptune, which is at 29 degrees Aquarius, is going to go retrograde itself. And again, retrogrades are not about doing new things, they're about going back and reviewing things. Now 29 degrees is the miracle degree, so big things happen. When planets conjunct or station in retrograde at 29 degrees, big things happen. Because if you look at a sign, a zodiac sign is 30 degrees wide, you can look at this as a human life cycle. 0 is infancy, 29 is old age. At infancy, at 0 degrees, there's infinite potential energy because the life hasn't been lived yet. At 29 degrees, the life has been lived, and there's this huge wealth of experience and wisdom. But then there's this big potential of energy to go into the next life, to start all over at 0 degrees in the next sign. So either way, 0 degrees or 29 degrees are the miracle degrees because you have this nearly infinite potential of energy on tap to make things happen. So Neptune retrograding at 29 degrees, the miracle degree, in Aquarius, the sign of the people, in the third house, the sign of mass media and communication. some really huge delusions and deceptions and illusions are going to come to light. And that's the thing too, when Neptune goes retrograde, the deception stops and the revealing and the disclosure actually starts taking place. So, that's pretty interesting. The other thing too is that, when you talk about, even I'm doing Vedic, the outer planets like Neptune, Uranus, Pluto are not really part of Vedic, but I like to work them in. So when I start talking about outer planets that Western astrology makes more of a use of, I kind of start talking about some of the aspects. So where this Neptune is, so 4 signs away, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 signs away is from Aquarius is Taurus. So Mercury is in Taurus because it did that at the beginning, the end of May, it did that retrograde at 0 degrees of Gemini and went back into Taurus. So around this time of the Jupiter station in retrograde, and then even at the time on the 25th of the Neptune station in retrograde, Neptune's got a square on Mercury, which is our intellect. So on top of Neptune being retrograde on the 25th and starting to doing the revealing and disclosure rather than illusion and concealment and deception, you're going to still have it so squaring onto transiting Mercury, so 4 signs away. But a few days, several days after that Neptune stationing and going retrograde, before you get into, I think around the time we get into July, let me look at that here. Pretty early in July, Mercury is going to move back into Gemini. So Neptune will no longer be squaring it. So when Neptune is no longer squaring Mercury, then we're going to be like, really the blinders come off in a more serious way, and we kind of go, oh, holy shit, like how did I not see the truth? Like how was I blind for so long? So yeah, I'm thinking, July 7th, Mercury is going to go back to Gemini. It's going to be out of this square with Neptune. And all of a sudden, Neptune's power is going to wane. And we're going to be like, whoa, holy shit. Oh my God, like how did we not see the truth that was going on with all these things? So yeah, both this Jupiter and Neptune stationing and then retrograding in Aquarius, and then with Mercury eventually moving out of Taurus and back into Gemini, out of its shadow. Some blinders are really going to come off that even people who are religiously and fanatically committed to the mainstream and this idea that the mainstream media tells them the truth because they went to college and they worked hard their whole life and they bought a house and their parents fought in World War II. Even those people are going to have trouble maintaining their denial. And they're going to have to accept things that they thought were conspiracy theory for a long time. So yeah, this is going to be a big fucking deal. And another thing that Aquarius is about, where these stations and retrogrades, Jupiter, Neptune, are taking place, Aquarius is also about science and technology. So that is very pertinent to this whole Wuhan flu, China virus, and then the experimental shot, the experimental remedy that supposedly keeps you from getting it. A lot of truth about that is going to come out too, about how it's not very safe. It's causing health problems, it's causing heart inflammation, heart problems in teenagers that are getting it, people that young. I think it's going to take a while for the whole infertility side effect to really come to light, but you never know. So that's going to be a big deal. Now, this Jupiter being on top of the natal moon, the birth moon of the United States of America, and then going retrograde to drop truth bombs and review, because Jupiter in retrograde, it does a review. What is the truth? What is the real higher knowledge? What is the more correct narrative? That is going to affect the signs that it rules, because even when you have empty signs, you see where the dispositors, where the ruling planets are and what's going on with them. And that'll tell you what the signs are doing. Now that is going to, the condition of Jupiter dropping all these truth bombs and helping these disclosures and these revelations come about, that's going to affect the June 24th full moon in Sagittarius. Now this is a really important full moon in Sagittarius, because for the first time since June of 2002, we are going to have a full moon on the ascendant degree, so about 9 degrees of America, in the Nakshatra constellation. So the 12 signs are made up of 27 smaller lunar mansions, or nakshatra constellations, in the nakshatra of Mula, which is right at galactic center. It's one of the constellations in Sagittarius. Mula deals with destruction of the old so that the new can come about. So this full moon will be almost exactly on the ascendant degree of America for the first time since 2002, and it's also going to be on the same degree where Ketu, the dragon's tail, or the south node of the moon, was on 9/11, 9 degrees of Sagittarius. So this, to me, this full moon taking place here, it's basically here to tell us, here to remind us about, our American values of individual freedom, individual liberty, free speech, all that stuff. To bring us back to that. And that's a foreboding, too, of the Pluto return that's on its way in the next year. And then, too, because the full moon is going to be right where Ketu was on 9/11. And really, the Ketu-Mars conjunction on 9/11 was really what, was a trigger for those violent attacks. I think because it's the same degree that Ketu was on 9/11, we're going to revisit 9/11. And with this whole Kung Flu, China virus, Wuhan virus extravaganza, we've gone back to 9/11, and we're having a new police state created, but it's a medical police state that basically, if we submit to it, if we go get the green passport, the COVID passport, we give up our medical privacy to these fuckers. So it's basically a warning. It's like, hey people, you're being emotionally manipulated just like you were in the aftermath of 9/11. And whatever you believe about it, why 9/11 happened and how it happened, I don't believe the mainstream story at all. 30-year airline pilots in flight simulators couldn't hit a skyscraper while they were in a steep turn going 475 miles per hour. None of them could do it. So anyway, yeah, it's a reminder that you're being emotionally manipulated just like you were in the aftermath of 9/11, so that people could steal your power and just put you in more of like a dystopian, technocratic police state. So yeah, these fuckers need to be stopped, but not stopped by anybody's political messiah, by their Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders or whoever the fuck. It's got to be stopped by you, by me, by everyone. We have to realize that all politicians, even the president, they're the help. They're hired help. The president is the national butler. He's a foreman of the help. He works for us. We don't work for them. We're not beholden to them. That's a bunch of authoritarian European, basically, monarchical socialist bullshit. They work for us. You know, we don't need their permission to live our lives, to go see our families and friends, to congregate, to go to concerts, to enjoy life, to enjoy art and culture and music and all that. We don't need their fucking permission. We have to remember that, or else we're screwed. But I don't think we are screwed. People are pushing back, and they're pushing back in a big way. So, good things are coming. It's just, we're going to have some bumps and bruises, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable. So, yeah, that's the big thing there. And I'm going to leave it at that. Well, you know, what the hell? One more thing. We got to talk about, Mars. So Mars is, through all this, Mars is in Cancer. Mars is in the 8th house. 8th house is the house of taboos, hidden things, sudden ups and downs, sudden losses, sudden gains, like big finance, like government finance, inheritance, taxes, insurance settlements. It's the occult. It's like magic, astrology, the hidden laws of nature, which is what magic really is. You know, divination, scandals. I think I said scandals already. But yeah, it's all that stuff. And so Mars, what day is that? Especially by June 27th, transiting Mars is going to conjunct America's natal Rahu. So the dragon's head, north node of the moon, present life karma. It's like the thing that brings you into the life that you're supposed to be exploring and mastering to get fulfillment in this life. So basically, America's destiny was to delve into the spiritual and the hidden laws of nature and, you know, what we call magic, the alchemy in life. That's America's hidden destiny. And since it's the sign of Cancer, America and the American people were meant to find their comfort and their freedom and their liberation and their sense of ease, and even to make their homes in spirituality, magic, alchemy. You know, not turning lead into gold, but turning like the lemons in your life into lemonade. We were meant to explore all that. We were meant to gain freedom rather than to. And the other thing is opposite the 8th house is the 2nd house, where the Ketu is. So 2nd house is materialism. It's all the material goods and resources in your life. Whereas the 8th house is your spiritual wealth and your spiritual treasures. So America's destiny was to find freedom and comfort and find a home by embracing the spiritual wealth and spiritual treasures that are the divine inheritance of all humans. So I think when Mars conjuncts this natal Ketu, almost 16 degrees, 15 degrees, 51 minutes of Cancer, we're going to see big fucking scandals because Mars is aggression and Mars makes things happen. Mars doesn't like being in Cancer and it has a hard time expressing its anger and a hard time, you know, telling people how it feels and expressing its emotions. But Rahu is the trickster, the master of desires, wants to make things happen. So I think working together in this house of scandals, it's going to bring some big scandals about. And again, it's opposite the sign of money and wealth. So I think big financial scandals. I think something like some kind of cyber attack on or just after this time could be happening, because Rahu also deals with computer technology and electronics. And cyber attacks, ransomware, it's the wave of the future. I think, you know, the governments are losing power, the corporations are taking over, and they don't really want to fight big conventional wars like world wars because too many consumers get killed in them. And it interrupts business. They don't want to interrupt business. They want to keep the profits flowing in. So, yeah. And with all that going on, with Rahu with transiting Mars conjuncting America's natal Rahu, right around this time, the retrograding Saturn is going to be near America's natal Ketu. So America's natal Ketu is America's sort of past life karma. So America's past life was being a colony of the old British Empire. So old Europe, and Europe still is ruled by people with the most money and most wealth. The big wealth in Europe makes the big wealth in America, like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, look like a bunch of fucking chumps. There's extravagant wealth in Europe beyond the wildest dreams of the wealthiest people in America. Europe has a very rigid class-structured society, but they have socialist, especially in Western Europe, they have a socialist management system that buffers the people away from the big business and big finance. So they're under the illusion, everyone everywhere is under the illusion that the government is in charge. It's not. It's a management system that keeps the people from seeing big business and big finance and how they are the real bosses. So America's past life karma was having been a colony of an empire that was ruled by the people with the most resources, the most wealth, and the most money. And America was meant to get away from that and embrace freedom by embracing spiritual treasures, finding the freedom and comfort in the spiritual riches and spiritual treasures. Now, the sign of Capricorn, where Ketu, where this past life karma is, Capricorn is all about servitude, it's about obligations, it's about sucking it up, getting your job done, doesn't matter how you feel. And Capricorn is also about being beholden and indebted to other people. So with all that in mind, as the retrograde Saturn gets closer to America's natal Ketu, this is going to cause a downturn, a big downturn in the stock market, in the money markets, in the economy in general. And it's to get us away from materialism to embrace these spiritual treasures that are our rightful divine inheritance, our spiritual inheritance for all humans. I think August 4th, around there, is going to be a huge, I'm going to do another video about this specifically, but that's going to be a big, I think you're going to see some kind of a stock market crash. Anytime, there's pretty much always one anytime Saturn and Ketu meet up. So, yeah, especially but the natal Ketu for sure. So, yeah. So that's going to be on all the heels of this, is that Saturn retrograde coming close to the natal Ketu. So while you have these scandals being revealed in the 8th house, the 8th house looks at the 2nd house, so it's looking at money and finance. So as the stock market, the financial world has its downturn, the scandals are going to be exposed. Just like what happened in 2008 when Bear Stearns collapsed and all the bailout stuff happened. That was Saturn and Ketu, the transiting ones, meeting up in Leo. So yeah, look for scandals and right on the heels of a stock market crash and its economic downturn. You know, and I definitely do believe that we're on the brink of like a significant economic depression. So with that happy news, I'm going to wrap this up. All this stuff is for a good cause, you know. None of us grow of our own volition. We do our best growing when we have to, when we're forced to do it. So the economic downturn is going to help us get back to spirituality and finding our spiritual treasures, our spiritual roots, and our spiritual wealth. So that's part of the whole transformation that our country has to go through to survive this near-death experience that it's been living through. So anyway, if you want to see how all these current events affect you personally, we can do a Vedic astrology reading. I highly recommend it. One of the big topics in that reading is how this karmic axis, these placements of Rahu and Ketu, affect you. because your present and past life karma tells you a lot about what direction you're supposed to take your life in. You're supposed to get away from your past life karma and embrace your present life karma so you can feel fulfilled. We live our first 18 years, and even our first 35 as our past life self. It takes a long time for us to figure out who we are. So the astrology readings help with that. I do rune readings. I've got a couple of Qigong videos on sale for download. Great mind-body practice to improve your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll be talking to you. Have a good one.